Welcome to the Cal State LA Financial Aid and Scholarships FAFSA tutorial. Start by visiting the FAFSA website studentaid.gov. New applicants must create a new account before submitting their application. Returning applicants will log in with their federal student aid credentials. The credentials remain the same as those from the prior year, so you do not need to create a new account each year. Transfer students who previously submitted a FAFSA do not need to create a new account. Make sure to add Cal State LA in the schools section and remove any schools you're no longer attending. If you do not remember your username and password, you can recover them by clicking the appropriate link. Once logged in, click Start New Form to begin the application. Next, you will need to select where to start. You can begin as a student or parent. There is no correct answer, and you can complete the form from either starting point. If your parent has already started an application and you just need to complete your section, you can enter the invitation code below. For this example, we will complete the form from the student's perspective. Your contact information is automatically transferred from your account. Double-check the information before proceeding with the application. If the information is incorrect, click the Account Settings option and update the Contact Information section. This section asks which state the student will live in while not attending Cal State LA. In the example, the student will live in New York while not attending school. The following section asks students to complete a questionnaire about how long they have lived in the above-mentioned state. If the student was born in that state, they must enter the month and year they were born. The student must consent to and approve using their federal tax information in this section. The student's federal tax information is transferred directly into the application by providing consent and approval. Even if you, your parent, spouse, or partner didn't file taxes, you must approve to proceed. Declining consent will prohibit you from being eligible for any federal student aid. If your 2024 tax return information was obtained from the IRS database, you will not need to provide tax information later in the application. If the information could not be obtained, you will need to answer tax information if you filed in 2024, so you will need your tax return available to enter the information later in the application. The personal circumstances questions will help determine eligibility and determine if just the student's information is needed, or if we need to have the information of a parent, spouse, or partner in addition to the student. In this section, the student will enter their current marital status only. Any contributor will enter their marital status later on their portion of the application. This section is solely for the student. The following screen has two questions for the student. The first is about the grade level the student will be in when the 2026 to 2027 school year begins. In other words, when the fall 2026 semester begins, what grade level will the student be in? The next question asks whether the student will have their bachelor's degree by the start of the 2026 to 2027 school year. So, when the fall 2026 semester starts, will the student have earned their bachelor's degree? The question is not asking if the student will earn their degree during the school year, only if they had it before the year started. The next series of questions will determine if the student has any personal or unusual circumstances. Based on the questions, the student should answer them to the best of their ability. For the question asking about student homelessness, the student must be unaccompanied, meaning they were without a parent or guardian. For any unusual circumstances, the student must complete a form and present documentation to CSULA. Your dependency status will be determined once all the questions about personal circumstances are answered. Dependent students will report their and their parents' information. If your parents refuse to complete their portion, the student will not be eligible for most federal aid, but can still have access to direct unsubsidized loans. Independent students will report their information and potentially the information of a spouse or partner if circumstances require them to do so. The demographic questions will accomplish two things. Some will seek background information for research purposes, which do not affect your aid, and others will help determine how much aid you will be eligible to receive. The questions that will not affect your aid will appear with a disclaimer in a green box stating, "They will not affect aid eligibility." Students must choose a gender based on the options available in order to continue the application. The student should answer to the best of their ability, but their answer will not affect their aid. Students can choose to enter their race and ethnicity. There is no right or wrong answer to these questions. The students should answer to the best of their ability or select Prefer not to answer. Once again, the answers to these questions will not determine aid eligibility. In the following section, students will select their citizenship status. If unsure which answer best suits them, they should refer to the FSA help page in the video description. The parent's education status question asks whether the parents attended or completed college. If the student doesn't know, it's okay to select Don't Know and continue the rest of the application. Student high school completion status asks if the student will have completed high school by 2025 by selecting if they have a high school diploma, GED, were homeschooled, or none of the above. If the student selects a high school diploma, they must enter their information on the following screen. When entering the high school information, the student must enter the state and the city. The school name is optional to enable the search. Once they locate the school on the search, they must select it. Forgetting to select it may cause a delay in the processing of the application. The student can enter the information manually if the school isn't listed. If the student has a high school equivalent, they must select the type of certificate and state in which it was awarded. If the student selects homeschooled or none of the above, the student will not need to enter any additional information. The financial section determines the ability to pay for school. Since the example we are using is in the student section of the application, we only need the student's information. For those who received the Could Not Retrieve Information notification, you will need to enter tax information on the following screens. Student tax filing status only asks if the student filed taxes for 2024. The question is not asking if the parents filed or if the student was claimed as a dependent on a tax return. The following is an example of what the screen looks like if you have to enter your tax information manually. If you need further assistance on how to enter the information, please visit one of our tax videos on our channel and view the video titled FAFSA, Manually Entering Tax Information. For best results, watch the version in our Shorts section on your phone and enter it manually on your computer. The next page of the financial section looks for three things. 1. Student assets are the total students have in their bank accounts in cash. 2. Current net worth of any investments or real estate. 3. Current net worth of any businesses and investment farms. If none of these apply to the student, they will enter 0. Do not add any information about parental assets. If the student does not file taxes, it's most likely the last two mentioned items will not apply to them, and they can enter 0. The college portion is essential to ensure the student's aid information is delivered to CSULA. If the student does not select CSULA as the school, plus the Department of Education will not know where to send the student's aid, resulting in delays as the student will need to correct it on the FAFSA website and wait for the Department of Education to send the corrected information to CSULA. For Cal State LA to receive the information entered in your FAFSA application, go to the Enter School Code option and enter 001140. The results should only yield those of Cal State LA, and make sure to click Select. Once selected, the screen should reflect 1 out of 20 schools selected, and the school selected is Cal State LA. The following sections will guide you through the process of inviting a contributor to the application. The student will enter the parent contributor's email address and click Send Invite. After sending a link to the invitation, a code will appear that the parent can use to accept the invitation. To proceed to the next screen, click Continue. Before signing, you will be able to review your responses. The green check marks indicate the section is complete, and the blue arrow pointing down will let you review the responses in that particular section. If everything is in order, click Continue to e-sign. Please review the terms, and once approved, click the box to agree and then sign the student section. Upon signing, you will see one of two screens. The first will show you Pending Submission, meaning you are awaiting a contributor to complete their sections to complete the application. The other will show as FAFSA Form is complete. This means the application is completed, and we are not awaiting any additional contributor information. Once the form is complete, please allow 3 to 5 business days for the Department of Education to process your application.